Emma, thank you for joining me on GV Talks.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
You're 10 minutes late. What's going on?
I think I'm always a little bit late. If you tell me 10:30, you probably should have said 10:20. Then I would have gotten here on time.
Well, originally we said 12, so you're actually an hour and a half early.
Yeah, exactly.
What have you been doing this morning?
Well, I went to the gym this morning, and then I went to Little Lippery and had coffee with Ellie, actually. We had a little coffee date.
Yeah. So we met at the gym. Who signed up first, you or Ali?
I think I did. Yeah. Ellie and I were going to another gym before that, and we were just kind of looking for something else, and I heard about your gym, and Ellie had mentioned that one of her friends does the semi-private trainings, and so I was the one who kind of took the step, I guess, because I kept saying to her, we should sign up or we should go check it out, and she was a bit, whatever. So then I went, and then I bullied her for about 2 weeks until she eventually signed up as well, I think.
Yeah, you were pretty close together.
Yeah.
Before we get too deep into it, do you want to let the locals know who they're listening to?
Yes. Well, my name is Emma Burr Nyberg. I am the operations coordinator at the University of Melbourne here in Shepparton. So I do all... Why are you looking at me like that?
It's a hefty title. I don't think you've ever told me the title of the job that you do. It sounds really professional, doesn't it?
Thank you.
Where's the business card?
Well, people don't use business cards anymore, I don't think. I basically do all the HR, recruitment, selection, inductions, everything for the Department of Rural Health. So that's a branch of the University of Melbourne, which is based in Parkville, but we've got campuses in Shepparton, Ballarat, and Wangaratta. So I help to recruit for all those rural campuses.
Yeah, so what do you do specifically? How do you recruit people?
Through job ads.
Yeah, so you run the ads and stuff like that?
Yeah. So hiring managers send me the position description, I review them all, send them off to get proofed and edited, and then we put them up and on Seek and UOM, their websites. And then when all the applicants come in, I do the shortlisting, send it to the hiring managers, set up all the interviews. So I'm constantly just, setting up interviews, talking to different applicants. It's pretty cool though, because I'm kind of the first point of contact for all the applicants. So any new starter that comes to the university, they know who I am and kind of, you're the Emma, you're that person that I talked to on the phone with a weird accent. That's kind of who I am, and I'm kind of their lifeline for the first couple weeks at their new role.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to be quite social and outgoing, be the friendly face of the university, because I'm the first person that they kind of touch base with. So
do you interact with a lot of new people? Is there a high turnover or?
I think lately there has been, maybe because of COVID and people are just changing roles, and working from home I think has been either quite good on people or quite tough. So there's been a lot of staff changes since I started 3 years ago, I think now. It comes in waves, I think.
Yeah.
Do
you think your job can be done to the highest standard from home? Did you like working from home yourself?
To be honest, last year it was quite new and exciting, I guess, and we were in the height of COVID. I didn't even want to see anyone, or it was all a bit scary, so I didn't mind working from home then. My partner Brad was actually working night shift at the time because he's an electrician, so he was doing all the wiring for the new hospital that they were building at GV Health. So he was working night shift, going to bed at 5 p.m. and then working from 5 a.m. and then all day. So I basically didn't see him. So I was not only isolating by myself, but I didn't have anyone at home. I saw him for 2 hours a day. So that was really tough, I think, at the start, but it was all still a bit new and exciting to be able to be at home in your PJs, because I'd never really done that kind of work before. But now that it's kind of gone in and out of lockdown, I've kind of realized that I like being in the office. I went back into the office again this week. We've started slowly coming back, and I was one of the first ones to raise my hand and be like, yeah, I definitely want to go, because it's nice to just have social interaction and also just have somewhere to go for the day instead of just from your bedroom to your living room to your office and back.
What is the argument that people make for wanting to stay at home instead of coming back? Because I think your environment plays such a big role in how I perform. I can't do 5 push-ups here. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't perform well working from home, I can't imagine.
Yeah, I think life's like a work-life balance. You definitely get a lot more flexibility because you can push in, a lot of work and do other things on the side as well. And people with kids, like they might like having the ability to work from home some days and catch up on a few chores or whatever else that they need doing. But I kind of find it that if I stay at home all day, all I see is the dirty dishes in the sink. And it's just like, that's all I'm thinking about, like I'm like, oh, then I have to clean this and do that. Like I like having the difference of it being at work and then coming home as opposed to everything just kind of combining into one.
Home's a place of rest.
Yeah, definitely. And like to relax. And I'm kind of the same though, even with the gym. So last year we bought a bit of equipment and just put out in our shed, just to have something to do. And I was doing at-home workouts.
How dare you not?
But, well, we didn't have a choice. Everything was closed. But that was all right for a while because you get to do, 30 minutes and you're basically done because you just do like a quick little high-intensity thing and then you can move on with your day. And but I feel like I perform a lot better when I'm in the gym because I see everyone else pushing themselves. And that kind of like, even if I'm in I don't feel like it today, I still end up surprising myself, which is quite nice. And I actually, a few weeks ago, went to a coffee shop for like halfway through the day because I was going to go get a coffee. And then I thought, oh, you know what, I'll just bring my laptop and just sit here for a bit. And I got more work done at the coffee shop in those like 2 hours than I'd done all day. Just because there was people around and there was, noises. And it felt like everyone else was like making me work harder. And it's kind of the same feeling, I think, at the gym. Yeah.
I love taking my laptop to a coffee shop and working. It's kind of like a scene from a movie.
Yeah, it's like a novelty.
Yeah, I'm here, like, this is like that part of the movie where they start the montage and I'm working on all my ideas, so I've got to actually do it.
Yeah, I feel a bit bad though because I usually just sit there and have a coffee for 2 hours and then I'm like, oh, I've only spent $4. Yeah, they probably want to like wave me along, but most of the time it's alright.
It's good though because I won't go into a coffee shop unless I see other people in there.
Yeah, true.
Do you know what I mean? So like even if you're just in there taking up a bit of space, I think it invites more people to come in. Yeah. Because if you're in there, I want to go in there.
Yeah, true. It must be good.
Yeah, or else I'd just kick you out, surely.
Yeah.
Has it always been important for you to stay fit?
Yeah, I think so. Growing up, I've always been quite active, doing a lot of different sports. I did soccer growing up. Not that I was any good, just like a team sport, I guess. I have always been skiing, but that's because of my background. I grew up in a place where it was, 9 months of winter a year, so there was always snow on the ground. So I grew up skiing, downhill skiing and cross-country skiing, and then that kind of eventuated into snowboarding, and so I've done a lot of those kind of active sports, but still single, not like the team sport environment, I guess. I also played quite a bit of golf growing up, which is quite surprising to people. But my mom is an avid golfer. Like, she loves it. So when I was, 3-4 years old, I was already gripping a club, basically. And she took all of my cousins. We've got about 8 of us, the Swedish side of my family. All of us cousins all went to, like, the little golf camps and stuff growing up. So actually when I met Brad, we played golf together for the first time and I beat him and all his friends, like all his guy friends, and we were all, and then afterwards they said, oh, like, I didn't realize you played so well. And then one of the guys goes, oh, and hang on, you were playing from the men's tees the whole time. Because there's different types. So there's the red is usually the women's tees, I guess, which is further front. Yeah, just because you don't don't hit as far. It's kind of the same as if you think about like men like lifting weights and that. Yeah. They would lift a lot heavier. So men's drives would usually go further. So yeah, there's women's, and then there's like 2 sets of men's tees at the back, and most of the people go for like the middle tees, I guess. So I was hitting at the back with all the guys because I didn't want to be left out and be hitting from the front.
Yeah.
So yeah, then afterwards they realized that she was hitting with us the whole time and she still beat us. So
how awesome. How does he feel about that now? Surely it's a big joke. At the time he would be like, damn.
Yeah, he
impressed or embarrassed?
Yeah, no, definitely impressed. He's not wouldn't be embarrassed by that kind of stuff. I think he really brings me up and is excited for all the sports and everything that I do.
Yeah.
And even the travel and everything. I feel like that's one thing that we both have in common, which is nice.
What do you like more, sports or weight training?
Oh, I don't know. It's different, I guess. I get different joys out of it, I think. The sports is more maybe of like an adrenaline, being outside in nature. Like I love being outside and going for hikes and seeing mountains and all those things. I feel like I get...
Why do you think that is?
Because you just appreciate nature so much. You appreciate how beautiful the world is and how much it has to offer, which I love that side of it. But then weight training, I feel like, is more of a routine. You can see yourself get more fit and push yourself harder. So I like that side of weight training. And I don't think I've done much weight training before, to be honest. I think I've done more sports, or if I did the gym, I would do high intensity or even classes because I need someone to yell in my ear and tell me to keep doing push-ups when I'm about to die. So I kind of need that push, and I think that's a good thing with like your gym as well, because just when you think you're about to give up, you kind of pop out of nowhere and say that you can go up in weight, or you can do 3 more.
I don't see you slack off. I'll walk around the corner and I'll see you pushing out reps that a lot of people would have stopped 5 reps before.
Like one arm just still trying to push up.
You've learned intensity through weight training. It's so hard to teach somebody that.
Yeah, I think that's probably my competitive nature as well, though. I'd want to be able to push myself as hard as I can. And that's one thing that I like about weight training too. I'm like, how far can I push my body and how fit can I really get? I feel like I get a little bit obsessed with that stuff.
Do you feel like the amount of effort that you've been putting in is an equivalent exchange for how you look currently?
Yeah, probably. I'd say that I've definitely trimmed up since starting at the gym.
Yeah.
Probably not within the first 3 months. Like I was still pushing myself, but I probably wasn't as focused on the food and all the intake and that, just because we went on a few trips and I kind of felt like, I feel like it takes a few cycles to kind of get into your food, and it's a bit of a change of a mindset as well. So I feel like the last 3 months I probably pushed a lot harder as well.
I feel like people need to hear things a lot of times before they actually sink in, because people talk to you, and as they're talking to you, you get ideas. And once that idea enters your head, you stay with that idea for as long as you want, but you've checked out of the conversation.
Yeah.
So, the first time you hear about food, you're like, macros. Do you know what I mean? And then you get stuck on that idea and you've blocked out everything else. Not you specifically, and I mean this in every aspect. I feel like the clients need to hear what they need to do for about 3 months before they fully understand. All right, that makes sense. Got to cut this, do this.
I think Ellie and I were even joking one time that she was saying to you that, oh, actually, this week I've been really good. Over the weekend I counted all my macros and I hit them, and I was still eating a lot, but I was actually counting, and I've gone down in weight. And you're like, oh, yes, I know. That's it. That's what I've been telling you this whole time, is that if you hit your macros and you actually eat what you're supposed to, you'll actually go down in weight. And I feel like you probably repeat that every single Monday to people, even to myself, because I'm like, oh, I blew it over the weekend. And then you're like, yeah, but if you actually just had counted and hit your macros, you didn't have to be that strict, but you could still progressively lose weight or get stronger or build muscle.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like you're probably repeating that all the time.
even with the clients, like I don't even mind if they blow it as long as they record it, because then we have the data. Like I've had people who have started eating more and started losing more. But if you don't record it, you just have no idea. You just feel like you're blown out.
Yeah. I think one thing that I like about macros too is that I'm a lot more conscious about this piece of, I don't know, pastry. I can eat this little piece and it be 300 calories. Yeah. Or I could eat this whole massive, like, I don't know, bowl of Greek yogurt and berries and like a massive serving. Yeah. And that could be 300. I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm wasting myself on this little piece that won't actually satiate me. Like it would be really nice and I'll love the taste of it, but this would be just as good. So I feel like I'm kind of thinking of the volume of food that I'm eating now, as opposed to just whatever tastes good, even though it's really small.
Do you think you would diet any other way in the future?
No, probably not.
Yeah. So you'll do this for ages. Oh, well, like you'll do it off and on for a long time, I think. And like you'll have periods where you do intuitive eating because you've been doing it for a while now. You start to know that pastry's 300 calories, like without putting it in. Like so, even when you'll go through periods where you don't want to track your food, and that's completely fine. But you already have put the information in your head, so you'll be more aware of. I had a client. Monday this week, and she said, I put in 60 grams of avocado and it was 350 calories. I thought avocado was healthy. Avocado is healthy, it's not fats. But what are we talking about here? If we're talking about creating a calorie deficit, it might not be the best option. There's other healthy fats you can get that you can fit in that are lower calories.
Yeah, I find fat to be my hardest one.
Yeah?
Because I always go over with my fat. So that's one thing that I always think of.
What foods do you like?
I don't know. I don't know where I go over. Maybe like lamb and stuff might have a lot of fat in it. And if I were to eat chocolate, obviously that would be a lot of fat.
Chocolate.
I do love chocolate.
Like every girl. Awesome. So you mentioned you're not from Shepparton.
No.
How did you find yourself here?
Oh, well.
The accent, it's a killer.
Yeah. It's a bit of a weird accent, and now that when I talk to my parents, they always, or like my siblings, they always make fun of me because they say that I sound half Australian, even though I don't think I do, and nobody here thinks that I do, maybe because Shep has such a thick Australian accent. But yeah, so I'm originally from Sweden. I was born in Sweden because my mother is Swedish, and then grew up half of my life in the United States as well because my dad's actually from the States. So I'm a bit of a mix, a bit of a mutt, never really fit in anywhere. But people actually get really surprised when I say that I'm Swedish and I speak Swedish. And they go, oh, no, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, yeah, I just told you I grew up in Sweden. Obviously, I know how to speak Swedish. It's my native tongue. But it's just because I speak English with such an American accent that people just assume that I wouldn't know another language.
Yeah.
Men om du vill så kan jag prata svenska, för jag har ju alltid pratat svenska.
What did you just say? An insult, I'm sure of it.
No, I said, well, but if you want me to speak Swedish, I can speak Swedish because that's my native tongue.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And now we're only going to communicate in Swedish. But I don't know. I'll just be like, yeah.
Yeah. Did you not realize that I spoke Swedish?
It makes sense when you're saying it. Obviously, you would know how to do it.
Yeah.
But I just never even thought. Yeah.
But even Swedish people in general are really good at speaking English. I think because all the TVs, everything, there's a massive influence from, like all the movies from the US and a lot of the famous celebrities and everything like that even music has an American influence. And my mom said that growing up, she learned to speak English from the Beach Boys because she used to love the Beach Boys. So she said that really helped her to learn English, even though they did it in school and stuff. But I'm pretty sure you start English in Sweden at like the age of 6. When you start, first grade or year 1, as you say, you start English at the same time. So that's like if you guys were to, as soon as you start school, you were to start taking French or taking Spanish, because Spanish is the world language, then all you guys would know Spanish quite well as well. But I don't know when people start it here, then it must be like high school or something.
Yeah, we learned Japanese, but
Okay.
I wasn't very good at it. And I think it was year 7, so obviously a lot later. Spanish is the world language?
No, I'm just saying if it was. No, English is definitely the world language.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying if it were Spanish, then it would have a much bigger influence and you would probably learn it at an earlier age. But kids are like sponges. Like, it's such an important thing if you do want them to learn another language to do it early, because they pick it up so quickly. And yeah, even growing up, like I would just switch between the 2 languages. Like my mom would ask something, and even now, like my mom will ask something, I'll reply to her in Swedish, and then my dad will say something and I'll reply to him in English. Even though he does understand Swedish, he kind of speaks like a broken Swedish, but you still understand it. It's kind of cute. It has a lot of grammatical errors and that. Kind of like if you were to meet someone's old, I don't know, Chinese grandma or something, and you kind of still understand her, but it was some of the words would be a bit off, I guess.
Will you teach your kids Swedish?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely want my kids to learn Swedish. I want Brad to learn it as well. He keeps saying that he wants to, but I haven't seen him really try yet. I think it's a bit harder if you're not exposed to it. Like if we were to move to Sweden, he'd get pushed into it right away, and
100%.
he'd kind of have to. I know that my dad said when we lived in Sweden, he found it really hard to even practice his Swedish though, because as soon as people heard you trying to mumble like, can I water please, they'd be like, oh, where are you from? English. Oh yeah. And then they want to practice their English, so they all of a sudden speak English to you, and he's like, oh well, I never really got to practice my Swedish because everyone it would just be easier for them to speak to me in English.
Yeah, and you probably feel a little bit embarrassed as well. Do you get angry that like you've kind of been forced not to speak your native tongue?
Here?
Oh, just in general, like you had to learn English because everyone has to learn English. We didn't really thought about it like that.
Yeah, no, I kind of find them interchangeable, so I don't really feel like I'm forced to speak any of the languages. I'd say even now, because I've lived overseas for so long now, my English would probably be better than my Swedish at the moment, because I hardly speak it. Like you kind of lose it if you forget simple things that you would normally just would come to you, would be a lot harder to kind of think of.
You should start like Swedish lessons.
Yeah,
people
for
would
all the Shep people.
They reckon they would come. I reckon they would come. People love that stuff.
Oh, yeah, I don't know when they would ever use it though. Maybe when they find a Swedish exchange student, they can woo her with some Swedish words.
What was it like growing up in Sweden?
Yeah, good. We lived up in the north of Sweden, so basically 3 hours from the Arctic Circle. I was born in Skellefteå, which is, it's like the, I don't know, kind of the, not Bogan, but it's in the middle of the woods, basically. So similar to Shep, maybe a little bit bigger. And surrounded by a lot of pine trees, but still on the water. So the Baltic Sea actually goes up, you've got Norway, and then Sweden's the one in the middle at the top of Europe. So those really long countries. So you've got Norway, you've got Sweden, the Baltic Sea in between that, and then Finland on the side there. So we lived basically right on the water. We've actually got like a little house that's only a few Ks from the water, which is pretty cool because during the winter, it gets so cold that the ocean freezes. And think about this. Salt water usually freezes at, I don't even know, normal water freezes at 0.
Yeah.
But salt water is like -10 or like something below that because it's got salt particles in it. So it takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
But because the Baltic Sea mixes with the fresh streams, so you've got rivers going into it, and it's not the ocean, I guess, because it's a sea. It's just like juts in a bit. It actually freezes because it's so cold there during the winter. It could be like -20, -30, sometimes even -40 degrees, which is unbearable sometimes. It's like when it's really, really hot here, you can't even go outside. It's the same thing, but if you go out for a walk, for example, you come back and your eyelashes are frozen, like they're white. Your hair would be frozen, so it'd be literally crystals on your hair. I probably have some picture somewhere of it. And your nostrils freeze, so all your boogers and everything freeze. It's all like you can't like physically breathe when it's that cold out. But it is beautiful. Like you get to see, there's a lot of wildlife, moose, reindeer. You get to see the northern lights a lot during.
Really?
Yeah. So around, I'd say this time of year, so like from September to December, or even throughout Christmas, I guess. But yeah, I remember coming home from the gym and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, is that something green like starting in the sky? Because you kind of just gradually see it, and then all of a sudden it's just like a green line, and it moves and it like dances in the sky. If you ever want to be mesmerized, look up the Northern Lights. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I want to see it.
Yeah,
I've seen it, like, and I've been like, that's like bucket list sort of thing for me. I'd love to see that. It's beautiful.
I love the Northern Lights. That's another thing that just makes me appreciate nature as well. It's a pretty cool phenomenon. It's about the polar fields. So it's like a magnetic field, I guess, that it's a weather change, like the clouds coming in.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So the North Pole, because we're so close to the North Pole, it then draws magnetic fields, and that's what the green and the different colors are. It's all the magnets, I guess, all being drawn to the North Pole. It's pretty cool.
It's amazing. It's crazy that nature can make something that beautiful. Like, it doesn't seem to make sense. It seems like magic.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like if nobody could explain to you, like the way you explain it now, there was just green through the sky, you'd be like, what is this world? This isn't real.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's definitely so beautiful. And during winter as well, there's just snow all on the pine trees, and it's a really beautiful place. I think if anyone wants to go to Europe, they should definitely try to make a trip to either Norway or Sweden, because there's so much to see around there.
When you were describing how cold it was,
yeah,
actually before that, do you reckon that the photos give it justice?
No.
Really?
No.
So I thought the photos would be better than real life because they're probably Photoshopped.
Yeah.
But not the case. You reckon it's better in real life than it is in photos?
If you're ever in not a snowstorm, because that usually is quite windy, but snow, I think, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure snow grabs a lot of the moisture in the air. So if you know how in movies you see these massive like snowflakes falling, you get such a calm like stillness because there's never any wind when the snowflakes are falling like that. So you're basically just looking up, and you can hear like a pin drop and look around, and everything's white and beautiful, and your feet, like you can even hear the crunching under your feet, and you breathe in, and it's this beautiful breath of fresh air, basically just every breath that you take. I find it quite peaceful and relaxing, and I think that's also why I love being out in the snow during the winter as well, because you get that, like you get to look at these beautiful mountains, and you're outside all day with your friends on the snow. It's such a good time, and like I said, you really appreciate everything that the world has to offer, and how beautiful nature really is.
How do you think the beauty of Australia compares to the beauty you just described then? Are they on the same level? Like, do you, like, it's probably hard for me to see because I've been here my whole life, but are there environments here that you go into and you find that feeling, or it's just like a taste compared to what you would experience in Sweden? No,
it's definitely just different. I think different type of beauty. I really love the trees here, like all the gum trees, and even the animals. Like I really appreciate all the different colored parrots and animals, and even the mountains here are really beautiful. Like if you go up the high country, I'm blown away sometimes by the mountain and the landscape up there, which I love.
Yeah.
And then even this is a really silly thing, but canola fields, I'd never seen them before. And Shep is the flattest place ever. But during springtime, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Like, stop. We need to stop. I need to take a picture. And Brad in his head was like, no, don't you have canola fields everywhere? Like, I thought everyone had seen this stuff, and I had never seen it. And I thought it was so beautiful. Like these fields of yellow. How awesome.
Yeah.
Not that that's the most beautiful thing, I guess, about Australia, but even like all the beaches, like I've been up north and traveled quite a bit, and even down Torquay Way, I think is really beautiful with all the cliffs. And Australia has a lot to offer, and I like that. And I like the lifestyle and the work-life balance here as well. I think I really love living in Sweden. I think I'd probably go back if I were to have kids, because I'd want them to experience the same lifestyle, but it's a lot more closed off. People aren't as open, I'd say. Here, people are quite outgoing, and in Sweden, it's quite, I don't know, just a different type of culture. If you don't know the person, they wouldn't go out of their way to talk to you or reach out to you. Not saying that they're cold people, but it's just a different way of communicating, I think. And then obviously the winters are quite, can be quite long as well. You don't really get a summer, which you do here. Obviously it's a bit too much of a summer, but you still get the best of both worlds here, I think. It's just very far away from everything.
Why do you think it's like that in Sweden? Do you think it's just in the culture? I was in China, and I asked my tour guide, like, why haven't I not seen one person smile for the whole 2 weeks I've been here? And she said they're happy. It's just not in the culture to smile. Yeah. And I was like, that just didn't make sense to me. But I understood it when she said it, but like, it's just hard to wrap your head around it.
Yeah, I think if you were to go up to a random person in Sweden and just start chatting to them, depending on who they were, they'd kind of look at you and be like, do I know you? Like, try to place you from somewhere, because they wouldn't go out of their way just to talk to someone. Unless you were drunk at a bar, I guess. That would be a lot easier to talk to Swedes, I think. Not saying that they're not easy to get along with. It's just like to get in probably would be a little bit harder. But maybe also coming from an outside perspective, because I've moved between the countries quite a bit. So even though I was born in Sweden, I still traveled to and lived in different places. So I am 100% Swedish, but not. I'm like a 50-50. Like I said before, I'm a mutt. And now I've got a weird Australian accent, so now I'm even more of a mutt. So
how long were you in Sweden for, and then you went to America after that?
Yeah, so a bit of a weird childhood, I guess. Not weird, amazing childhood. I loved all the adventures that we went on. My parents have always been quite keen travelers, so we moved around quite a bit. My parents were living in Switzerland just before I was born. Moved to Sweden, where they had me, and I have 2 older siblings as well, so we were all, my brother Bjorn and my sister Hannah. Yeah, my brother's name's Bjorn.
Ever.
Like Bjorn Borg, you know, the tennis player. Yeah. So we were all born in Sweden. No matter where we lived at the time, my mom always went back to Sweden to have us. So I was born in Sweden, and then when I was 3 weeks old, we moved to England, and we lived there for 2 years, and then moved back to Sweden until I was about 6. And then moved to Virginia, which is in the United States, kind of in the middle. Middle East of the States. And then lived there for 2 years. Moved to Paris for 3 years. So I went to the American School of Paris there, which was really cool. Like, we lived in the middle of Paris, basically. Like, I wish we could have stayed there a bit longer, because it was such a unique experience, and I got to learn a bit of French. Not that I'm very good anymore, but I'd still be able to kind of get away with it. I even a few years ago traveled South America, and I don't know any Spanish. I never took Spanish in school, but because I'd had French before, I kind of picked up a lot of, because it's a romantic language, I picked up a lot of the ways that they say things, and would say it with a French kind of spin on it, and the Spanish people would pick it up and be like, oh, you mean this, and so I feel like that I've still got that kind of background, and still a little bit okay in my French, I guess. So we lived in France for 3 years, and then from there, how old was I? Maybe 9, 10, 12. Yeah. So when I was 12, we moved to Boston. So just outside of Boston, which is in the United States again. And that's where I then finished up high school. So when I was 17, I graduated, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do because college in the United States is very expensive, like 20 to 50,000 a year, and that's American dollars, and you have to do a 4-year program. So I wasn't going to fork out $200K because I didn't have that much money. And yeah, so then because of that, I moved back to Sweden to complete. So I'd done my high school in the US, but in Sweden they start a year later, so that you actually graduate when you're, instead of 17, 18, you graduate when you're 18 or 19.
Yeah.
So I did, luckily my cousin, who I'm quite close with, he had like a spot open in his class from someone who had moved or something. So I jumped into their last year of high school and read up on Swedish and a few other curriculum, and transferred my high school diploma from the States to then get a high school diploma in Sweden. So I kind of got both, which was awesome because I got to do senior year in the States. And then when I was 18, I was in Sweden, which is, you know, the legal drinking age and a lot more freedom. It was, and it was cool because I got to see the two different cultures and how different the schooling and culture and everything was. But I got to go to, you know, one prom in the States and then go to the senior ball in Sweden as well. So I kind of got the best of both worlds, which I loved.
Yeah, I'm jealous. It sounds like a blast. Which one was better? Which one was more wild?
Yeah, so in the States, I feel like they focus on academia a lot more. Yeah. And I did a lot of extracurricular activities and was part of sports teams because that's how you get into college. And I love that because every single, like, you'd finish at 2:30 and then you'd have training from 3 to 4 or 5 at night. So you were quite like active with the school, and there was a lot of team spirit. You went to football games. Oh, sorry. I hit the mic. Sorry, guys. So you go to football games. There's a lot of like team spirit. And then, so I like that about the going to school in the States. But then in Sweden, it's a lot more laid back. It's basically, I was used to having to raise my hand to get a hall pass to go to the toilet. Whereas there, they were like, no, like, you're 18 years old. You can do whatever you want. If you don't want to come to school, if you don't want to do your homework, fine. It was a lot more independent, I'd say. They basically taught the students, but also if you didn't want to show up to class, you weren't as disciplined, I guess. So it was a lot easier in that way. It's not as focused on academia. It's more focused on lifestyle. And if you wanted to do TAFE or something else, if you wanted to become a mechanic, you could do that. As opposed to in the States, it was basically just like, no, you have to do high school and you have to graduate in order to ever get a job anywhere, basically. But in Sweden too, it's a lot more centralized on when you go into high school, you go into different trades, I guess. So you can go straight into a mechanic, or you can go hairdressing, or I jumped in my cousin's class, which was friluftsliv, and that's like outdoor life and leadership, which was sick because every Friday we basically had a whole day. So like in the morning we had gym class, and I was used to gym class being dodgeball or something, but gym class in Sweden is like you do gymnastics, you go cross-country skiing, you go play ice hockey. Like, it's so much more active, and I feel like a lot more people participate as well because it's a lot more fun than just slamming a ball in someone's head and everyone just standing to the corner, because it was the 3 best people that always just won. It kind of took over. But we did outdoor life and leadership. So we went on hikes. We went on like a 7-day overnight trek through the Swedish mountains, got to stay in tents and wake up to moose and reindeer on our back tents, I guess. We got to go whitewater rafting, so many cool things. And this was all through the school. And that's what they encouraged for people to do. And that was a program, like a high school program. It was awesome.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. people tend to live their life in stages, and like people who want to travel usually want to do it when they're like 18 or 21 or around that age usually. But you've done it all in your childhood.
Yeah, I think that kind of pushed me as well to keep traveling, because my parents have been such avid travelers. When I was younger, traveling just kind of made me want to travel even more. So my dad, for example, he's a very interesting guy. I feel like I appreciate him a lot more now that I've gotten older and have learned more about his background and everything that they've done. So he actually grew up on a zoo. Like his dad owned a zoo in the United States, and I think his dad was he was like an academic for Yale or something, like quite a switched on guy, and just on his spare time wanted to own a zoo. So my dad grew up with like chimpanzees and monkeys and all that kind of stuff. So that really drove him to want to study veterinary medicine. So he's a qualified vet, and I think at the age of 16 or 17, he did an exchange program in Austria and England and came back to the States, and then went over to, because he studied animal science or something, and then got into a a degree in veterinary science in the Philippines. So he went over to the Philippines, to Manila, and studied there for 5 years. Once he completed that, he got into a postgraduate in South Africa. So he moved to South Africa, and at the time it was during apartheid. So everything was in Afrikaans, which is the Dutch, British influence kind of language, I guess. And so it's a totally different language. And he said he had to have a book with him during the lectures. They'd be speaking a different language and writing down. It's like a Dutch kind of language. So he would be writing down what they were saying, looking it up in the book. Veterinary, like he was doing a postgraduate degree in a different language, in a totally different country, and still managed to graduate, I guess. And then from there moved, I want to say he did a stint in Saudi Arabia and Iraq, working at a dairy farm. And so he was there for, I think, 3 years, so 2 years in Iraq and 1 year in Saudi Arabia. And then he describes it as, and then there was a war that broke out because it was the 80s or something. So after a while I thought, I better get out of here. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable to get out of Saudi Arabia, or Iraq, I guess. And then from there he got accepted into a program. I think he studied in New Zealand or worked in New Zealand for 2 or 3 years, and then got accepted into a PhD program, so like a doctorate program in veterinary medicine in Australia. So he, growing up, as you can tell, he didn't travel much when he was younger, but as soon as he hit 16, he just bounced from one place to another. And he always describes it as he didn't have enough money to study in the States or want to stay in the States, I guess. So he just bounced around from any place that would take him. So the Philippines probably was a cheap way to go. And then, wherever he got a scholarship, he was like, yep, packing my bags. I'll move to a totally different country where I don't know the language or anything, and head over there. So I feel like a lot of my influence comes from him. And also, obviously, my mom is quite active in traveling because they travel together quite a bit. So because of that, I've always had that push in the back of my mind. If I ever said to my dad, I'm thinking of moving here or traveling here, he's always my biggest push, I guess, and always is backing me up. You want to go there? Yeah, let's do it. Let's make it work. If you want to travel South America, let's see how we can make this happen. So when I finished my high school in Sweden, so let's see, how old was I then? 18. I did a ski season in California because I loved, I think my sister lived out there at the time, and I loved skiing and really loved the the vibe and everything at ski resort. So I did a season there, and then got accepted into a bachelor's degree in Sweden. So I moved back to Sweden again, studied there for a few years, and then I applied for a few exchange programs. I applied to Australia. I think it was like Bond University up in Gold Coast and a few other places. Australia, New Zealand, all those places, everyone wanted to go there. So no, I didn't get accepted to any of those programs, but I got into a program in South Africa, and I had never really even thought about Africa or seen it really. And I was like, yeah, okay. I asked my dad about it. He's like, oh, of course you have to go. It'll be amazing. It'll be the best chance in your lifetime. Definitely go. So yeah, I accepted the program to go there and study, and I was studying just outside of Cape Town at a university called Stellenbosch University, and it was beautiful, like beautiful vineyards all around in these massive mountains, and even Cape Town is just surrounded. You've got this Table Mountain. I don't know if you've seen it before, but it basically looks like a tabletop, like it's flat and then juts out and goes down again. It's beautiful. If you ever want to look at an amazing, it kind of reminds me a bit of like Rio de Janeiro with all the mountains right next to the water. Similar to that. Cape Town has a very similar vibe. So I studied there and absolutely loved it. And I think I told you that I blew out once because I've just been traveling and eating and drinking and all that, and I think my weight just ballooned from there. But then after that, I kind of was like, okay, back to normal, back to routine. But I mean, I think that happens with everyone when they travel, because they're enjoying themselves and enjoying the lifestyle. But it was awesome. It was such a great experience. I got to study African studies because I was doing international studies at the time. So I got to learn all about apartheid and different African countries and how they all fit into one another. From that, I got to travel all the way up the coast from Cape Town all the way up to Durban. Absolutely beautiful. And it's so cheap too. Like, it's such an affordable place to visit. So if anyone ever wants to go anywhere, I always tell them that Africa, everyone has such a bad stigma, I think, about Africa, because they think that, it's war, like really, there's a lot of poverty and you might get robbed, and fair enough, you might, but don't flash your brand new iPhone to someone who that might be their whole year's wage. And I feel like it's really important for people to kind of see the other side as well, instead of their sheltered little bubbles. But yeah, it's the same traveling in Asia, I think. There's a lot of poverty around Asia, but it's just probably closer and a lot easier for Australians because it's a lot more comforting for them. They might
more know. Their friends have been there.
Yeah, everyone's been to Asia, I guess. But yeah, in South Africa, I traveled all the way up the coast. I went north to Namibia, which is basically just a desert, but beautiful. They've got these massive sand dunes, kind of like the sand dunes that you see on screensavers. Yeah. Those kinds of sand dunes with dead trees in the middle of this massive field of sand. I went skydiving there, actually. Saw a little sandstorm come in and the ocean and everything. It was beautiful. And from Namibia, we went on heaps of safaris, saw lions and elephants and every amazing animal that you can see. You see on these safaris. So why wouldn't you want to go to Africa? Because there's just so much to see there. And then from there, I think we traveled over to Botswana, which is also like heaps of animals that you can see and parks to visit, rhinos, all that. I think it's the biggest rhino population in Africa, in Botswana. And then went to Zimbabwe and back down. I think we spent Christmas in Mozambique, which is one of the countries just on the coast there, and went scuba diving and got my scuba diving ticket and saw all these amazing animals under the water as well.
How lucky do you feel to have parents like you have? Because they've opened up all these opportunities for you. Because that's not normal, what you've just described, I don't think. I don't know anyone else who has a story like you just told me.
Oh, thank you. I'm very, very lucky. And I'm very close with my parents at the moment too. Like, they have always been my biggest heroes. And I think I appreciate them, like I said, a lot more now that I've moved away and how much they've actually done for me and how much they continually support me as well. So it's pretty unbelievable, and I'm quite grateful for all the opportunities that I've had. I always find that, because after South Africa, I got into a master's degree here in Australia, and that was my dad as well. He pushed me to be like, oh, you should do your master's somewhere else, because I was gonna just finish my bachelor's degree in Sweden and then maybe do a master's in Sweden, because it was easy and it was free. Because all university there is free. So I was going to apply, and then my dad was like, no, let's go somewhere else, go try some other place. And so I got into a master's degree at Monash University in Melbourne, and I'd never even heard of Melbourne, really. I knew that there were a few. I'd probably heard of Sydney and Brisbane, maybe Perth, but Melbourne wasn't really one that you'd heard quite regularly. Maybe in the recent years it's become a bit more popular. But I've always got this philosophy, because at that time I was at a bit of a crossroads, because I was actually I had a relationship previously, and we'd been together for maybe 3-4 years, and it was like, oh well, I've got it 2 years in Australia, what do we do? Do I stay in Sweden for you, or do I go on this epic adventure to Australia instead? And I know he said to me, I wouldn't want to be the reason why you stayed, so definitely just do it. And if we end up, if you end up coming back to Sweden, then we'll see what happens, but let's not bank on it. And we were still young, it's not that big of a deal, it was a mutual little part, I guess, for us. But yeah, so I've got this philosophy, coming back to what I was saying, that what's the worst that can happen? Because every single time that I think, should I move to South Africa? That's a big step. Or should I move back to Sweden? I don't know anyone anymore. Or should I move to Australia? I literally did not know a single person in Melbourne or Australia, basically.
Yeah.
And I had no friends, no family, no nothing. And it was half a world away, the furthest place from my family or my parents. And I always thought, well, you know what? I can always try it for 6 months or a year. And if I hate it, worst case scenario, I move home.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same with anything. If you're a bit on the edge of, should I do this business adventure, or should I go on this traveling excursion? If you hate it, the worst thing you can do is move home, because home is always going to be the same. No matter, I haven't been home now in 3 years, and I bet you as soon as I am there for 2 minutes, I'm going to be like, it's all the same. Nothing really changes except for yourself. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So even though I moved here and didn't know anyone, I was still just thinking that I'll try it for a year. And if I really, really hate it and I really want to go back to Sweden or go to the States or wherever I want to go, I could always go back, because that's always going to be there. But no, as you can tell, I stayed. So it all kind of worked out. And I'm so grateful for everything that's happened because of it.
I think you just answered my next question, but I'll just double check. Home for you is Sweden?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anymore. I would say it's a bit of both. So if someone were to ask me where I'm from, I would say Sweden, because that's where I'm from. That's where I was born. But if someone were to ask me, where's your accent from, or where do your parents live, or where's your family, I would say the US. So it kind of depends on how I phrase the question. I think deep down I would say Sweden, because that's where I was born, and I feel like that's where I have more pride in being Swedish than maybe American. Not that the US isn't a great place, but I like Sweden a lot more, maybe politically, and even if I were to work, I'd rather work in Sweden probably than in the States, just because it's a bit more cutthroat in the United States and that. Even though the US is beautiful, there's so much to offer there. I don't think I would move back unless it was a great job opportunity or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say Sweden, maybe 60 or 70%, and then the rest the US.
It sounded really attractive, when you where you described the schooling. That's appealing to me, and free university. That's
Yeah, so
Amazing.
you pay through it all through taxes.
Yeah.
So it all evens out in the end. But it kind of means that the people on the top that make a lot of money, they get taxed a lot. So they feel like...
So bad.
But like, yeah, but everyone's kind of on the same level playing field then too. I think that's a really Swedish thing, is to not brag about all the riches that you have. There's actually like a simple man law is what it's called. And it's you are basically the same as everyone else. So don't go, like Americans, they love to brag. They love to talk themselves up about, oh, I'm the best at this or that. Not all of them, but I feel like there's a lot more culture of that because of the capitalistic background of the United States. Whereas in Sweden, it's a lot more like, I wouldn't even tell people that I'm from the States because I feel like I'm bragging. Because then they'd be like, oh, well, you're not like us kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I probably would just hold off. I think when I started uni, people just said, oh, I thought your accent was just that you're from the northern part of Sweden. I didn't realize that you had an American background as well, because my accent is quite heavily northern, I guess, like a deep southern accent, I guess, of the United States. Like that kind of accent is what I would have in Swedish. And yeah, a lot of the people that I studied with, they were like, oh, I didn't realize that you were American. I just thought your accent, like your mixed accent, was because you're from the north of Sweden, not that you had another background, I guess.
Yeah. How do you think you're going to feel when you see your parents again after 3 years?
Oh, even like talking about it now, I feel like I'm like tearing up a little bit about it. But yeah, definitely will cry. I think COVID's obviously been really tough on people, and I've been really lucky because I've still had work and, you know, a house, and everything's been quite stable here in Shet. But a lot of people complained about not being able to see their friends or family. But I always was like, well, I haven't seen my family in 3 years, you know, like, or 2 years. So your 2 months without your family doesn't really, equate, I guess, to emotionally what I was feeling at the time. But I think everyone was going through their own little hardship, so yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna like start start crying.
We have absolutely chewed through the time.
Oh, have we? I haven't even looked.
So we're going to skip to the last question.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What's the last question?
You know what it is.
Oh, what locally inspires me?
Who locally inspires you?
So I had to think about this, and I don't know why, but this is the first person that came to mind. And I don't even know this person very well. And it's not even someone that I would say I understand their background or anything, but I would have to say, and you know who this is, but I'd have to say Tegan Crawford.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a bit cliche or not, but I love the whole background of it, like how she's this young, successful female in the community doing something that she loves and having this great business model. Like, she has such amazing work ethic. I follow her on Instagram, Tegan's Cupcakes, and she's like baking non-stop, and she obviously must love it or get some satisfaction out of it because she is just grinding herself like crazy. And I would just love to have something that I'm that passionate about, that I'd be able to work 15, 16-hour days. Like, I work my 9 to 5 and I'm exhausted. Yeah. So the fact that she could have built this little mini empire, I guess, in the past 4 or 5 years, however long she's been in business, is pretty unbelievable. So I love seeing females like that and like how successful they can be. And I even see that in the gym. I love seeing females that are really strong and like pushing themselves, or, you know, feeling really good about themselves. And I feel the same with any female that in the community that's doing a really good job. So that would be the person that I would say.
I think that's a great answer. All right, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for that.
Perfect. That was really